Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to Riga for the first Baltic Maritime Spatial Planning Forum. My name is PartiSEApate. I'm organizing together with our team, together with Swedish Agency for Marine and Water Management, together with ICS, the PartiSEApate project, the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Regional Development. So we are welcoming you to this forum. Before we start the forum, several practicalities. You can watch the first day sessions also live streaming at wasap.org. All the presentations will be recorded, so when you ask questions, when you speak, please use the microphones. Then also you can use Twitter. There is a hashtag BALTIC MSP and share your thoughts about the event. And afterwards, in the afternoon, we will have a nice boat trip. For that you have boat tickets to the boat. Please keep them and show them when you are entering the boat. And if you don't wish to go there, you can share your ticket with someone else who don't have. Yeah, that's for the beginning. And now I would like to give the floor to my best friend, Jan Ekeboom from Metsähallitus Natural Heritage Services, to moderate the first session of this forum.
Thank you, Talis, and welcome everybody to this conference. The program, in my opinion, looks really exciting. I look forward to this day. We have some really good speakers. The topics are very right now, and there are some ground rules. Talis said about what will happen today and with excursion and everything, but I will talk about the presentations and the sessions. It's a very tight program, and therefore my job is for the first two sessions to keep the timetable. And I have been given 2 football cards, which means that this one will come up when there's only 2 minutes left for the speakers. And when this comes up, that's the end of the game. You're out. And for the first session, the time for each speaker is roughly 10 minutes. For the second session, there will be 12.5 minutes. So you who will be presenting in these sessions, be aware of this. I'm notoriously tight when it comes to keeping the time, so I will do so now as well, because we will pay later in the day for any moments that we are late. And without further ado, I will introduce the first speaker, Solvita Zvidrina, Director of the Latvian State Regional Development Agency. Please welcome to the podium.
Good morning. Welcome to Latvia. Welcome to Riga as European Capital of Culture 2014. And ladies and gentlemen and participants of forums, on behalf of the Ministry of Environment, Protection and Regional Development, I would like to welcome you all to this Baltic Maritime Spatial Planning Forum. This remarkable forum brings together experts interested in well-being of Baltic Sea, as well in increasing prosperity of people living around the sea. Vulnerable and unique ecosystem of our sea requires careful and professional attitude to every maritime-related activities carried out in the Baltics. The maritime spatial planning should become a tool, but not a miracle, for smart governing of human activities with fragile ecosystem. We in Latvia understand the seriousness of the environmental and climate change implication. Latvia historically has been a maritime country, and many coastal municipalities have large marine-related economies. Few years ago, Latvian government adopted Spatial development strategy of coastal territories aiming at sustainable and coherent development of these areas. By implementing maritime spatial planning, the linkage between terrestrial and maritime activities should become even stronger. So, the local ports, fisheries, coastal tourism, and other activities will have more clear rules and perspective. Latvia has already adopted necessary legal basis for maritime spatial planning. By using experience of pilot initiatives, Latvia maritime stakeholders are already quite familiar with tasks and consequences of planning of sea territory. The Ministry has started preparation for launching official planning process. The discussion of the forum will certainly facilitate not only Pan-Baltic, but also Latvian national maritime planning process. Dear guests and participants of this forum, I wish you intensive 2 days of interesting and fruitful discussion to create a common understanding of maritime planning, principles, and practicalities as written in the headline of this forum. I wish you fruitful work, discussions, not only work, but also taking account Riga as a capital of culture, and please take some time to look around, also some free time looking at events in cultural sector. Good luck. Thank you.
Well, that's what I call good timekeeping. The next speaker is Ulla Koski, Chairperson of the VASAP Committee on Spatial Planning and Development of the Baltic Sea region. Please, the podium is yours.
Dear friends of Baltic Sea, dear friends of Maritime Spatial Planning, on behalf of VASAP, I would firstly like to thank you so much for inviting us to Latvia, to Riga, to have this forum here in this wonderful city. This forum offers to all of us an excellent opportunity to exchange our views and experiences on a very topical theme of maritime spatial planning. In the Baltic Sea region, VASAP's key role is to represent spatial planning expertise, experience, and knowledge. And this is why VASAP has been very active in the work of developing maritime spatial planning since its very preliminary phases. One could also say that VASAP has been and still is one of the key actors in this work in the region. For planners, it's very natural that we have a long tradition of land use planning. Such planning is mostly guided by specific legislation, and at the same time, planning systems and planning processes have been developed step by step during many decades. With this background in mind, it is somehow surprising that in marine areas we haven't had and don't yet have any kind of spatial planning system or tradition. Maritime spatial planning and land use planning should not be viewed as totally separate entities. Land use planning includes many elements which are also very important in the planning of marine areas. From a Finnish perspective, I'm coming from Finland, I would like to highlight three different aspects. Firstly, all the relevant sectors and needs are analyzed and assessed at the same time and during the same planning process. That's very important starting point in all land use planning. Secondly, there are real opportunities for public participation and free access to all the information on planning process. Thirdly, there is a democratic decision-making process when taking decisions on the most important phases and choices during the planning process and when approving the final plan. I think and I believe that some basic elements of these three aspects could and maybe also should be applied when we are talking about maritime spatial planning. Developing MSP is a long-term effort by different actors and countries. The Baltic Sea region offers an excellent forum for this kind of cooperation, and in fact it has already offered it for many years. Over the years we have had many common processes and projects for collecting and exchanging information and knowledge, and they are still continuing. We also have a long tradition on establishing common principles on spatial planning and working together on pilot projects and modeling work. Moreover, all the countries have a clear political understanding of the importance of developing maritime spatial planning in the region and engaging in close cooperation. So we have done a lot together, but there is still more to be done during the coming years. It won't be long before the directive on maritime spatial planning will be in force, and all the EU member states in the region will have to implement it. One of the challenges is the need for sufficient uniformity while leaving room for specific national needs and solutions. Right now, we are in an extremely interesting phase in this region. And now, more than ever, close cooperation is in developing a common maritime spatial planning process and plan, hopefully a plan, is needed. We have the opportunity now to consolidate our experiences and our development work done over the years in different working and expert groups, in pilot projects, in other projects, and in international organizations. This forum illustrates how active the maritime spatial planning cooperation is in this region. During today and tomorrow, we will hear about studies, research, data, projects, cases, policies, and many other interesting topics. I very much hope that after this forum, we all have gained a lot of knowledge of MSP and the motivation to develop it in our own special region during the coming years. On behalf of BASAP, I would very much like to thank you all the partner organizers for the cooperation we have had during this preparation process of this forum. And I would very much like to warmly welcome all of you to this forum and wish you all the success to exchange your own experience, your own knowledge, and hopefully get something new. Thank you.
Yes, In the beginning, I didn't mention to you that we will take questions later on in the day during the panel, for instance, is a good opportunity. So from this first session, there won't be any questions. The next speaker is Heitse Siemens from DG Mare, my old boss, I might mention. And so he's head of unit for the marine policy in the Baltic Sea and North Sea. And please take the floor, Heitse.
Thank you, Jan. It's good to be here. Dear colleagues, distinguished participants, excellencies, and dear organizers, thank you very much for inviting me to say a few words at the beginning of this Baltic Sea MSP Forum. It is always a pleasure to come to the Baltic Sea coast. Europe's maritime policy has always had a bit of a special relationship to this sea basin. When we launched Europe's maritime policy about 10 years ago, there were supporters, of course, all across the European Union. The Atlantic Sea Basin, for example, was very enthusiastic. But I remember very clearly that there was a strong call for an integrated approach to managing our seas, which came from not too far from here along the Baltic Sea coast. It is also here in the Baltic that Europe's first and most productive macro-regional strategy was launched. And it is here that one of the most successful projects on maritime spatial planning was organized, and today's conference basically builds directly on that project. And you all know what I'm talking about. It's the Baltic Sea Plan project. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come a long way since the Blue Book on Maritime Policy was adopted. Over the last 4 or 5 years, it has become increasingly clear that Europe's future depends on growth and jobs, and that much of this growth and these jobs will come from the maritime economy. This is a trend not only in Europe, but worldwide. We are looking at a planet which will soon have 10 billion people who will all be looking for food, for development, for resources, much of which will come from the sea. Ocean use and exploration has moved from the traditional shipping and fishing sectors to increasingly innovative uses ranging from fossil and mineral resources via renewable energy to seabed mining and blue biotechnology. Managing ocean resources is a major challenge as well as a major opportunity in this context. It is a challenge because already now the marine environment is being tested by pollution, overfishing, or simply because climate change impacts the very foundations of our ecosystems. Nowhere is this better known than here in the Baltic. The close cooperation of the countries in the region around the Baltic is yielding results, as for example in the Baltfish Forum, which increasingly works towards better regionally managed fisheries, or through the Baltic Sea Action Plan to protect the marine environment. The European Union, through maritime policy, seeks to support this work, and we do have a little bit of a track record ourselves as well, and we're beginning to increasingly see the fruits of the work of the last few years. Our agenda is one which aims to support the maritime economy whilst ensuring that it develops sustainably and builds on healthy ecosystems. And this is really very much about combining the challenge with the opportunity. The recent reform of the common fisheries policy, for example, sets maximum sustainable yield as its target, fully in line with the environmental objectives under the Marine Strategy Framework Directive. We are also well on our way now to eliminate discards in European fisheries. The Marine Strategy Framework Directive itself is a bit of a milestone, setting environmental health targets for European seas by 2020. Sustainability is a driver for innovation. One example for this is the new stringent rules for ship emissions, which apply first here in the Baltic. And of course, these rules are costly for operators. But we can already see now that they have led to a whole range of innovations in ship propulsion technology. And this, in turn, will make the Baltic and European shipping and equipment manufacturing industries more competitive worldwide than they already are. The EU, meanwhile, is trying to help by encouraging the development, for example, of LNG terminals in ports in Europe, in ports around Europe, to encourage the use of better fuels. But we don't stop there. Most recently, we have adopted a communication on innovation in the maritime economy, which aims to support knowledge, research, and skills development in order to enable a competitive and future-proof maritime economy. And we have put forward a paper on blue growth in the Baltic, which aims to support the further inclusion of blue growth work on innovation, tourism, clean shipping, and technologies in the wider context of the Baltic Sea strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, today's conference is about maritime spatial planning. None of the developments that I just presented to you can be managed sustainably without some form of maritime spatial planning. Increasing use of sea space, as we all know, means coexistence, both among activities and uses, and coexistence of these activities and uses with marine ecosystems. If we do not carefully manage the relationship between sea uses and maritime space, we jeopardize much of the future potential, as well increasing the risks for our ecosystems and ultimately the foundations for our economic development. But you know this better than I do. After all, most of you will have been working with maritime spatial planning in the Baltic for a very long time already. Here also, the Baltic Sea area is a real pioneer, not only in developing maritime spatial planning itself, but also through the efforts to work across borders to jointly plan. The European Union's contribution to this work in the form of a directive whose final adoption is imminent provides a wider legal framework for work that you're already doing very well in the sea basin. With this legal framework, however, maritime spatial planning is now a reality not only here, not only in the North Sea, but across the whole of the European Union. The work that you are doing here will have much to contribute to this, as the implementation of the maritime spatial planning framework by Europe's coastal member states will depend on dialogue, exchange of best practices, and expertise. You are set to develop plenty of this today and tomorrow, and I wish you very fruitful discussions. Thank you.
Again, some excellent timekeeping, and like I say, you may ask Heitz a question during the panel. The next speaker is Thomas Johansson from, he's the head of the Marine Spatial Planning and Maritime Affairs of Swedish Agency for Marine Water and Water Management, SWAM. Please.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. Dear friends, it's always nice to be in Riga and to be in the ending of a very interesting project also. For almost 3 years, the Swedish Agency for Water and Marine Management was born. We started our operation. At the same time, just some weeks after that, we got a question about being a partner in a project, PartiSEApate. And I can promise you, at that time, it was not obvious that we should say yes, because we were lack of staff, we were just new, we didn't know so much how to work. But today, I can say that we all are glad that we said yes. We had developed old context, we have developed new context, and we have together developed the knowledge, the thinking, the ideas of how maritime spatial planning should develop in the coming years. 3 years going fast, PartiSEApate will end now. I feel I will say that those first 3 years in our agency, we have worked hard, and in one way we have also come to the new period. This summer we just finished our current status report of the Baltic Sea, and I hope you go and listen to my staff members who will talk more about it this afternoon. This summer also the EU directive will be in place. We have a Swedish legislation who the Parliament voted yes for last week, and it will be in place on 1st of September. And And this will complete it with a governmental regulation, how we in Sweden will and should work with maritime spatial planning. But I think the EU directive, the law, and the government's regulation connected to the law, it's good to have in function, but it will not do the spatial planning work in real times. The law doesn't say what we want to achieve with our plans, what benefit to the society good plans can deliver. The law and the directive doesn't say how we should combine ecosystem services, growth, create jobs, conservation in a way that everyone, or almost everyone, is satisfied with the plans in the end. In Sweden, we have to cooperate with something around 85 municipalities, and that work we do together with our state agency colleagues in 14 different county administrations. We have to cooperate with 10, 15 different sectors, mainly through the state's agency representing those sectors. We also have about 10 regions who have the responsibility for economic growth in a different region in Sweden connecting to the sea. And of course, all those are very important partners in the MSP work in Sweden. That's hard work. That's multi-level governance. That's connecting with all parts. But it is in Sweden. Then we have 9 different countries around our seas that we have to cooperate with. And only in the Baltic Sea plan we have 8 countries, including Sweden, who will cooperate together, common view of what we mean with MSP. And I will say that Sweden, we will have a common plan. I think it's important that we can show that we together can get a common plan of, for example, Baltic Sea or the North Sea region. So we do it together. And as the speaker before me said, I think we had the opportunity in this part of Europe. We have EU's strategy for the Baltic Sea region. It has been in place for some years. We have exercised some 3-4 years to cooperate, and the Baltic Sea strategy, the EU strategy for the Baltic Sea region, have the different components. It's environmental, it's job creating, it's transport. So I think we should take this opportunity to use the EU Baltic Sea strategy framework to develop MSP in this region. So I will conclude say that we have the instrument, we have cooperation, and let the MSP be the work that develop the Baltic Sea cooperation even one step more. Thank you.
The next speaker is Joanna Redzimurska from the Maritime Institute in Gdansk and also PartiSEApate project leader. Please.
Thank you, Chairman. I should also thank all the previous speakers because I have plenty of time now. Okay, so good morning, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, colleagues, good morning, friends. It's my great pleasure to open this conference as the lead partner of the PartiSEApate project, but also as the person who believes in the world without borders. So this will be quite, I would say, well, allowed me to have this presentation very personal one. During this forum, both in the panel session and in the workshops, we will together try to find out if the Baltic Sea region is ready for a transnational joint MSP. We will try to find out what needs to be done, at what level, and in which order. But most of all, I hope you also agree with me that we will try to find out what each of us, from each country, each organization, each institution can do for the MSP as a process to happen, a real transnational cooperation in the Baltic Sea region. Now, can I switch the slides? Yeah, okay. So, PartiSEApate as the project was, at least to my mind, a natural consequences of the process which started around the Baltic many years ago. From the beginning, for me personally, it was a great adventure, being a lead partner, but also being a member of the team. As Thomas mentioned, the project was a venture, because from the beginning we had the partners who were just new established, and then at the same time the ones who've been involved in the MSP in the Baltic Sea for a long, long time. In figures, PartiSEApate can be summarized like you see on the picture. But I think that the last one is most important, because this is about transnational cooperation. This is about making friends, making understanding among us, and then creating something which is built on trust, which is not built on directives, which is not built on laws. So, yes. Well, do you remember Baltic project? Well, I see faces here in the room that they remember this project. When it was starting, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland were not members of the EU. When it was ending, we all were members of the EU, and I was working in the JTS, and I had the pleasure to monitor the finalization of this project. For me, it was fascinating. The project, the topic as such, was something for what I thought that European territorial cooperation was made for. There is one common space, 9 different countries, but they all seem to think in the same direction. They all care about what they have in common. Later on, there was a Plan Coast project, European-wide project, then already mentioned Baltic Sea Plan project, and many ongoing initiatives by VASAP, HELCOM, and others who really thought that something has to be done in order to somehow secure what we call fragile ecosystem of our sea. Altogether, it took 10 years by now. Where are we now? Of course, further than we were 10 years ago. But experience shows it all takes time. Yeah. Processes related to MSP at all levels are ongoing. Recently, they have quite speed up. We've heard about that from Mr. Ziemers, and we all experience that in our normal life, especially the ones who are practitioners of the MSP. But still, the main challenge remains, and at least to my mind, it is how to cooperate across the borders if the borders make all differences. Working in projects is an important part of this process, but in order to be effective and enable the projects to make real difference, we have to learn each other, we have to understand and accept those differences, and finally to trust each other. This process cannot be put into frames and executed by laws and regulations. It may only happen if one sets relevant preconditions without asking for immediate and spectacular effects. Again, it all takes time. This is my experience and my lessons learned from PartiSEApate. We have been so happy from the beginning. Here we will talk about multi-level governance. We will try to make this future bright. After 2 years, we will change the world. No, it all takes time. Sectoral workshops needs time. Discussion within one sector takes time. Not mentioning discussion among the sectors. So it really takes time. And this time is needed for us because we have to understand each other. And what I really want to underline, this is on purpose. Conchita is there on purpose. To accept if someone is doing something different, to understand why. Okay. At the moment, we have plenty of opportunities. Does it change? Yes. Created BSR program, Central Baltic program, South Baltic program, national programs, Horizon 2020, bonus program, all of them have MSP in the scope of predicted assistant. Of course, we shall make use of them. But the most important, I would like to still underline this, is not to do everything the same way, like, somebody will invent a line and we will follow this line and then in the end we will be where we want it to be. We have to, at least I believe, we have to understand what and why others are doing differently, and based on this knowledge try to do something jointly and perhaps, hopefully after some time, in a joint way. On the other hand, it would be clever of us if we would make sure that all initiatives undertaken from by different partners, different actors, in different setups, different consortia, etc., lead us to a joint MSP over the borders. Here I see the role of national government and agencies as the important one and the crucial one. On the other hand, projects like PartiSEApate and BALTIC Plan especially have proven that the bottom-up approach may force actions at high level. And I'm happy to hear from Heitze that the BALTIC Plan was somehow an inspiration for the MSP directive. Working from different perspectives, we can make this puzzle picture a joint vision. So saying so, I wish you fruitful dialogues. I wish you as much as possible opportunities for learning each other, for discussing with each other and trying to understand each other during this forum. And let us all hope that this MSP miracle will happen in the Baltic Sea region. Enjoy the day. Thank you very much.
As you might notice, we are ahead of the time schedule. And Talis just whispered in my ear that maybe we should take a few questions anyway. And so presenters, raise yourself, you might get questions. And technical assistants, you have the microphones. We have been told to use microphones in order to facilitate the video filming, but make sure that the sound is good. So, the audience, any questions to speakers of this morning? Come on, they were good. Surely you have questions. Okay, I have a question. I will also expand this in the panels. but I have a question to Thomas. I know that, and I heard the good news that last week your MSP legislation passed in your parliament, and I also know that a couple of years ago you prepared already a draft legislation, and I know there was a lot of work going into that, and we were really impressed of all the background work. Are there any major differences between the draft legislations and this new one, and what were the reasons behind that? And I was told that this should, yes. The green light.
Well, it's not an easy question to answer, the reason behind that. But first of all, I'm glad that I have the possibility to talk a little bit more. I forgot to say something. Our Director General, Björn Riesinger, he sent his greetings to this meeting. He had no possibility to come. He had it in the calendar, but it's too much work to do at home. Well, back to the question. Yes, we have a preparation phase in 4 years. Axel Wemblad, a good friend to me, had the opportunity to do this work. And as always, we got in some political discussion. I think the legislation today, and you all know that Sweden are afraid about coastal zones planning from the state. We want the municipality will do that. So I think the main differences here is that we will do the planning process together with the municipality, the regional county authorities, agencies. We will do it together in a way that perhaps will end up in a better process and a better planning in the coastal zone, because I think more people will be involved, and we have to do this multi-level governance. But as a SWAM representative, I can say that it had been easier to do a national plan with Axel's approach. But the easy way, perhaps not always, is the best way.
So, and now, finally, the audience. Jacek, you have a question?
A question to Ula, of course, because we work so long. You know, you are one of the most experienced VASAP chairmen. It's the second term. And can you imagine how MSP would look like without VASAP? That's the first question. And the second question is following. Because this MSP is a joint effort, so each country is giving something. So Germany gave us the first plans. Sweden is showing us how long you can make a legislation. So it's a lot of nice experience. So what is the contribution of Finland to this joint MSP?
I'm a planner and represent really also in national administration planning expertise, and that's what VASAP is about. I would say that maybe the most important input is to understand and to make that understanding clear, that how important it is to examine all the sectors and all the different needs at the same time during the process of preparing a plan. We all know that there is a lot of sector-based planning in transport sector, in agriculture, and so on and so on. But spatial planning is something different. And your question was that what kind of MSP there would be without VASAP. Of course, I don't know. Not so easy to try to imagine it, but my guess is that it would maybe be more sector-oriented. And that's why I'm so happy that there has been for so many years, that kind of cooperation where the planners and sector experts have made good cooperation. They have learned a lot from each other. That's what I believe, and that's what I have heard. So the planners have learned a lot about sector expertise, and hopefully the sector experts have learned a lot from planners. So very, very good result. That's what I believe. But then about the Finnish contribution, oh no, we don't have national legislation. We have followed what you have done in Sweden. Maybe we have been a bit envious. But we have had discussions between Sweden and Finland, and I believe that what we can give to this cooperation is our very strong tradition in the Finnish planning legislation and in real planning processes. There's open processes, real public participation, and free access to all the parties and all the people. What I think that we would like to see from Finnish perspective is this democratic decision-making process. And at the moment, I don't have any knowledge about how this aspect will be implemented in Baltic Sea region, but from our national experience, it would be very, very important. So, not so good answer, but something for you, Jacek. And very, very nice to see you here.
Thank you. My name is Jan Schmidtbauer-Krona. I'm from the Swedish Agency for Marine and Water Management. And in Sweden, at our agency, we're exploring the possibilities to link our work with MSP with the implementation of the Marine Strategy Framework Directive. And among other things, we're discussing how the programs of measures could kind of set the framework for the forthcoming marine spatial planning. And at the same time, we have, at the ministerial level, we have the Ministry for Environment responsible for the marine spatial planning and the marine strategy framework. And we also have, but the Ministry for Enterprise is responsible for the Swedish work with the maritime, Swedish maritime strategy. So this actually opens up for a question to Heitz regarding the Commission's view or DG Mare's view on how we should work kind of cooperatively with MSP and implementation of the MSFD. Do you have any response to that? Thank you.
The trick of the whole issue, of course, is that maritime spatial planning is by definition supposed to be cross-cutting. And that therefore what it requires is that all those who are in charge of one bit or another bit of what happens to what I would call marine uses have to work together in order to get the plans as transparent and as well organized as possible. I think that's the fundamental element behind it. Now, how you do this is something where really we as European Commission take a step back and leave it to member states to organize themselves. This is not something where we, I think, where we should even give any particular advice as to how this is organized. But I'll give you a little bit of an indication as to how I see it, because I think that's quite important. Maritime spatial planning in principle, and I think there will be plenty of time also to discuss it in the sessions later, works as something that turns the objectives that you have set yourselves collectively into a reality in terms of how you organize the space that's available for the users. And that means that the important bit is setting the objectives right. And setting the objectives right is in the cases that you mentioned, for example, the program of measures developed in the context of the Marine Strategy Framework Directive and what you want to do in the context of the marine or maritime strategy. Important thing, therefore, is making sure that the objectives somehow talk to each other. And then the rest is just organizing the planning on the ground, not much more than that. That would be my answer in a nutshell.
We have time for a couple of more questions. I'm curious, there are about 35% of the audience are from the research sector. If you don't have any questions, I will start to ask questions from you, and I know a few guys from Finland. So who is quicker? Would you volunteer and ask a question, or would I ask a question from you? So, Harri and Ville. Now here's the thing, I'm a bit worried about all the data that we need. We have the INSPIRE directive, and it pushes member states to share data. And, but from what I see at the moment is moving forward, definitely. And pretty much thanks to actions taken by the EU at the moment. We have the EMODNED framework initiative, for instance, that have done a great job so far. How do you feel from the research section? What are the main concerns that you have concerning data? Let's start with Harri, for instance. You're working at the university. Harri Tolvanen, long-time researcher from Turku.
I don't know if I have any wise words to say at this moment. Our involvement is in an ongoing process at the Gulf of Finland, and we have some first experiences of collecting data for MSP from 3 states at the Baltic Sea, one of them being Russia, and in that sense, I would say that the concern about data is a very complex issue. It's not only about international cooperation in the sense that we have to talk, let's say, in the same language when we talk about what kind of information is needed and what kind of data are needed for the planning process, but it's also about understanding the data itself and being careful about using data sets from diverse sources, from diverse original, let's say, use intentions, and interpreting the data, putting it together and understanding what the data actually means and what kind of information we can actually derive from all the diverse data sets available in order to understand the processes that are needed to be understood when we are doing MSP. I don't know if I have any questions as such, but I hope that you understand what I mean about the concerns that we have.
That's actually what you said is very, very important. It actually brings us back to the trust that Joanna brought up. And I think that those concerns that you have actually comes, you can get rid of those problems by cooperating and getting together, not just in projects and sharing the data in projects, but also at all levels of MSP, whether it's research related and analysis of data, or whether it's actually decision making, transboundary, for instance. Then we have to trust that the neighboring countries that we work with, that they have the right sort of data and the data is compatible. So this compatibility issue is also something that you can overcome by testing it. What does it look like on a map? Do you get a match or don't you get a match? And then when you look into the depths of the data, are they actually similar or are there differences that you need to worry about? Professor Asp, please.
Thank you very much. And continuing along the lines Harri started, cooperating with Harri, I would say that data are crucially important, absolutely. But the data only are not solving the problems. Mm-hmm. We need focus also on interpretation of data. As we know from the real life, the same data from time to time are used to support absolute opposite point of views. It means that interpretation of data is one of the keys here. And why it could be used for interpretation of different views. What was not mentioned today, up to now, is the interests behind the positions, behind of the negotiation and point of views. Sectors have own interests, economic, social, environmental, and those interests behind of the point of views are the basis for the next step. Interest-based collaborative negotiation. It is which giving us the common ground, which is leading us further from sectoral interests to the common interest, from particular point of views to the common ground. This is just to go one step more than Harry said. Thank you.